Imagine a bank moving millions on the XRP Ledger without holding a single XRP. It sounds crazy, right? Well, I thought so too, until I stumbled upon a hidden XRP Ledger feature that left me absolutely speechless. As a long-time crypto nerd turned storyteller, I live for moments just like this, when a late-night rumor sends me down a rabbit hole. And this one, it's all about XRP, the crypto that we've all been watching for years. If there's a way to use XRP Ledger without touching XRP, then we need to talk about what that means. It's for me, and of course for you. Because either this is a nothing burger, or it's a plot twist that could change the game for crypto. Now, in today's story, I'm going to be talking, at least taking you through, I guess, my personal quest to verify something mind-bending, that institutions might not need XRP to move value on the XRP ledger. And yeah, you heard that one right. Now, I had to find out if that's true, and whether it's just a footnote in the tech manual or a total game changer for XRP holders like us. So grab a seat, because by the end of this video, you're gonna know something that even many crypto veterans, don't. And here's a spoiler. It might actually make you more bullish on XRP. At least it did for me once I got over the initial shock. Now, it all started on a casual Tuesday morning. I'm sipping on my coffee, scrolling through my feed, and I see this post from a crypto podcaster that I follow. And he's talking about a comment that Ripple's CTO, David Schwartz, made, calling XRP more of a weapon than a reserve. Now that alone was like, interesting metaphor. But then I read on, and the discussion gets pretty wild. Some mention that the two parties can use the XRP ledger to transfer value without using XRP at all, aside from a tiny little fee to kind of keep the network humming. Now my eyebrows of course shot up. Wait, what did I see and what did I read? More value on the XRPL, or at least move value on the XRPL without XRP itself. Now if that is true, what's XRP even for then, right? You can bet that I did a double take. Now the crypto nerd in me immediately kind of switched into a detective mode, right? Is the kind of same kind of misunderstanding, or is this a misunderstanding? Or have I seriously missed the fundamentals of the XRP Ledger feature this entire time? So I start digging, and I pull up the official XRP Ledger documentation because yes, I'm that kind of person who reads blockchain docs just for fun. Don't judge. Now, in fact, I was so obsessed with finding out the truth that I joked to a friend that I'd disguise myself as a janitor and sneak into Ripple's headquarters if that's what it took to get the answers. Obviously, I didn't, but that is how hooked I was on figuring all of this out. And there it is, in black and white, something about trust lines. Now, I've heard that term before, but this was the first time that it actually really clicked with me. Trust lines are a core feature of the XRPL. So think of them as kind of a handshake agreement on the ledger. If two accounts set up a trust line, they can basically agree to recognize each other's IOUs or tokens. So in plain English, if you and I have a trust line on the XRP ledger, I can send you an IOU token, say a USD token, issued by someone that we both trust. And you'll accept it because or at least the trust line says that you're cool with holding my IOUs, at least up to a certain amount. It's kind of like a promise on the ledger that you have $20 from me, and because we've established trust, you're willing to treat that as real value. Now, I'm sitting there kind of thinking to myself, how did I not fully appreciate this before? Why isn't this bigger talking point in crypto circles? It kind of felt like I'd just discovered an under-the-radar superpower of the XRP ledger, and I even kind of popped into our community Discord server and asked, am I the only person who didn't realize how powerful trust lines are? And a couple of OGs, they were there, laughed and said, it's one of those things that you don't appreciate until you see it in action. Fair enough. Consider me officially enlightened. Now, here is the kicker. right? Using these trust lines, two parties can trade and settle value on the XRPL without using XRP as the bridge currency. They only need XRP for one thing, paying the minuscule trading fee that makes the network work. Now, those fees are like fractions of a penny, denominated in XRP, but for the actual value transfer, whether it's dollars, euros, gold tokens, or whatever, the XRPL lets you do it via trust lines. My mind equals blown, right? I had to reread that part like 3 times to make sure that I wasn't just hallucinating from way too much caffeine. Now, this was in the documentation all along, but hardly anyone outside of the XRPL diehards actually talk about it. Probably because trust lines kind of sounds a bit like a boring or technical kind of jargon, right? But to me, at least at that moment, it kind of felt like discovering a secret menu item, at least, at a restaurant that changes the entire meal. Now, at this point, I imagined a pretty wild scenario to cement it in my head. Picture 2 big banks then. Let's call them Bank Alice and Bank Bob. And they make a gentleman's agreement, basically a trust line. Bank Alice will honor IOUs from Bank Bob's dollars and vice versa. So Bank Alice can send Bank Bob, let's say, 100 million USD IOUs on the ledger. And Bob Bank accepts it because, well, they trust each other and they'll settle it up later in dollars off the ledger. Now, throughout this whole entire dance, they did need a little bit of XRP itself. And XRP's role was just kind of like the ticket taker at the door, charging a tiny fee for the service and keeping the ledger secure. So, on one hand, I'm frustrated by this clever little setup. On the other hand, as an XRP holder, I'm a tad uneasy then, right? This is because, right, if banks or big players can just use the ledger and not actually hold XRP except maybe a little fee, or at least a little bit for the fees, does that mean less demand for XRP in the long run? Like, is our favorite digital asset just a glorified toll token now? So I was a little curious here, and maybe a little bit anxious, that I opened up my Kraken Pro app to see if XRP was tanking on this revelation. And I use Kraken Pro for most of my trades these days. So if you want to use it too, and it helps support the channel, there is an affiliate link that's in the description. Now anyway, XRP's price was just chilling. No massive dump, nothing, right? Maybe the market just hadn't caught on to this just yet, or maybe it just didn't care. Hard to tell, but it put me a little bit more at ease. I mean, if you're like me, you might still be, wondering, should I be worried? Should I dump all my XRP backs? Maybe before the world, I guess, kind of figures all of this out. Hold that thought right there. Now, this might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile, and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. After all, your investments are entirely your responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube is liable for any losses. And this video today is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Alright, so with that reality check out of the way, I took a deep breath and I just kept on digging because I had another question. Is this trust line trick something that Ripple actually wants people to use? Or is it just a theoretical thing that nobody really does? And you can cue David Schwartz entering the chat then. Right, remember, he's the Ripple CTO and the one with the original, at least one of the original architects of the XRP Ledger. And he responded in that kind of thread, right? Basically confirming that this isn't some fringe idea. It was the original vision for the ledger. And no joke, he said the concept of trust lines goes back to 2004 when a developer named Ryan Fugger first created the kind of precursor to the XRP Ledger. Now back then, the concept was literally people creating IOUs for each other. XRP was added later as a bridge currency when, at least for when direct trust lines weren't really enough. Now David Schwartz even expressed hope that institutions do use the XRPL that way, if it suits their needs. To him, it isn't a betrayal of crypto principles. It's exactly what the XRPL was designed to enable. And that kind of blew my mind all over again. The ability to move value without XRP is not a bug or an exploit. It's a feature, right? Baked directly into the DNA of the XRP ledger from day one. Now, we still have an elephant in the room, don't we, right? What does this mean for XRP's future then? Is XRP going to be sidelined if everyone else just uses trust lines with their own tokens? There's a reason that XRP exists as a native token, right? It is the trust list option, right? It's what you would use when you don't have an established relationship or you need an asset that's neutral with no counterparty risk. Now, trust lines are fantastic for a closed network of banks or a company that issues a stablecoin on the XRPL. But the moment that you want to start bridging networks, or you're dealing with a stranger on the other side of the world, you're going to want something like XRP. Now, Swartz pointed out that there are, at least will be, cases where trust relationships present a better solution than using a digital asset directly. And when those cases happen, people will naturally choose trust lines. But that doesn't threaten XRP. Why? Because cryptocurrencies still serve a whole range of different use cases that trust lines simply can't touch. Situations where you need to eliminate counterparty risk entirely, or you require global liquidity, or you want, transactions that nobody else can censor or freeze. Plus, every increase in distributed ledger usage is a win for the crypto ecosystem. Even if XRP isn't in the foreground of every transaction, if a big bank or fintech starts using the XRPL for something, well, they've basically stepped onto the dance floor of blockchain. And the more people that we have in that room, the better it is for the party. Also, every transaction on the XRP ledger, whether it uses XRP as the payload or not, requires a tiny little bit of XRP for the fee, and that XRP is burned. So heavier use of trust lines could actually make XRP a tiny bit more scarce over time. So I started to see the bigger picture here then, right? The trust lines capability isn't here to make XRP obsolete. It's here to make XRPL useful to even more people. It broadens the ledger's appeal, and the more people who jump onto the XRPL for whatever reason, be it to issue their own tokens, to move IOUs around, whatever, right? The more interconnected they become with the XRP's ecosystem as a result. So let me kind of give you another hypothetical example then. Let's say there's Alice and Bob, and Alice is a business in Asia, and Bob runs a cash remittance outfit in Europe. Now, they know each other and set up a trust line on the XRPL. Alice issues a token that represents Japanese yen, and Bob issues one that represents euros. Now, they trust each other's tokens up to a certain amount. Now, someone comes to Alice wanting to send money to Europe. Now, they can hand her Bitcoin. Alice can then use that Bitcoin, convert it into the XRPL's built-in, or at least convert it through the XRPL's built-in decentralized exchange, or via an interledger connector, and end up delivering Bob's Euros tokens to the recipient in Europe. Now, XRPL handles the currency conversion and all of the accounting. Notice how flexible the XRPL was in that, right? It didn't force them to use XRP, but XRPL was still the backbone there, right? And it's all making it possible, right? And if Alice and Bob didn't have that trust, or a path, in another asset wasn't maybe liquid enough, they would actually be using XRP to fill the gap instantly. So by 2025, this is exactly the kind of solution that big players are actually looking for. There's so much talk about tokenization of assets, central bank digital currencies, stablecoins, you name it. Everyone wants the benefits of blockchain, but many are wary of the vulnerability and the risks of holding crypto directly. XRPL is basically weaving, at least weaving their way in and waving at all of those guys. You can have your cake and eat it too in the XRPL. Now, If you enjoy exploring all of these kind of topics and have questions or ideas pinging around your brain right now, you should probably join the free educational Discord server. Right? We've got a friendly community, where we kind of chat about things, from breaking, crypto news to nerdy XRPL stuff just like this. All right, here's some final thoughts for you, right? I began this investigation worried that maybe XRP was in trouble, but now I see that this trust line feature is actually a strength. It's not a weakness. Now, a rising tide, lifts all boats, as they say. And if XRPL becomes the ledger of choice for more institutions or more use cases because of its flexibility, that's a win for everyone in the network. Now, Ripple and the XRPL devs didn't build this with kind of a rigid R token or bust kind of mindset. They basically said, we would love for you guys to use XRP because it's great, but do what you've got to do. We're here for it. So, to my fellow XRP holders out there, don't panic. Context is everything. Sure, a bank might use the XRPL for a stablecoin and not use XRP for that specific function. But in another context, let's say stablecoin needs to be sent to someone at a different bank or no mutual trust line, well, XRP steps back into the spotlight. Now, as an analogy here, think of the internet, right? Companies have private intranets and local networks. Now, that don't touch the open internet, right? And yet those private networks don't diminish the value of the internet, do they? Right? In the very same way, the XRPL trust lines setup, it doesn't reduce the value of XRP. It enhances the entire ecosystem. So, what a ride, huh? I went from OMG, this could kill XRP, to hey, this could actually boost the whole ecosystem. So I'm glad that I dug into this and shared it all with you guys. You can beat, you can't really beat kind of digging down and understanding these things deeper. And you can bet that the next time that I see a headline like banks don't need XRP anymore, I won't be losing any more sleep. Now, if you've enjoyed this journey and learned something, make sure to hit that like button, smash that subscribe button as well. I've got plenty more crypto tales to tell you, and you won't want to miss any of them.